They think they know you because you used to overshare, because you used to laugh too loud, because you filled every silence with stories just to avoid being forgotten. But something changed. Now your eyes stay calm when they try to provoke. Your words are fewer, but they hit deeper. You've become quieter, and somehow that makes them nervous. They don't know what you're planning, where your mind's been, what you've been building in silence while they were busy judging your stillness. And that's exactly how it should be. Stoic intelligence isn't loud. It doesn't perform. It observes. It analyzes. And when it moves with purpose. The smartest people you'll ever meet won't try to look smart. They won't compete. They won't correct. They won't need to prove they're right. Because they already know. Wisdom isn't about being heard. It's about knowing when to speak and when to let fools reveal themselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy, and the best strategy, not to fight every battle, but to become the kind of person they can't manipulate, predict, or control." That's what dangerous intelligence looks like. Not reactive, not showy, not loud, but calculated, calm, and 10 steps ahead. And the best part? They'll never see you coming, because you've stopped broadcasting your every thought, stopped leaking your next move, stopped giving them access to the mind they used to underestimate. You've gone quiet, not because you're lost, but because you're focused. And they can't compete with a mind that no longer seeks their approval. They'll ask how you got so sharp, so calculated, so unbothered. But they won't like the answer, because it's not a secret formula. It's not a course. It's not something you can buy, post, or fake. It's the result of sitting with your thoughts when everyone else needed distraction, of reading when they were scrolling, of journaling instead of gossiping, of training your mind while theirs was busy reacting. You didn't wake up gifted, you woke up different, and you stayed that way on purpose. They don't see the hours you spend untangling your triggers. They don't notice how you listen twice and speak once, how you watch the room before entering it. Because real intelligence doesn't just absorb knowledge, it filters noise. And the world is full of noise, opinions, algorithms, fake outrage, surface-level dopamine. You've stopped feeding off of that. You've learned the value of holding your tongue, of not reacting just to prove a point, of letting others underestimate you, because their assumptions are your camouflage. The Stoics weren't passive. They were strategic. They observed, reflected, and responded with precision. That's what you're building now. Not a mind that knows everything, but a mind that needs less and sees more. They'll say you've changed. You don't argue like you used to. You don't respond to every provocation. You don't rush to prove your intelligence. Because you finally realized proving it was wasting it. Now you sit back. You calculate. You ask questions that make people uncomfortable because they reveal more than answers ever could. You've become dangerous, not because you're aggressive, but because you're still. And they can't predict someone who isn't playing their game anymore. Sarah used to overshare every thought, every win, every heartbreak. She needed people to see her, not because she was vain, but because she felt invisible otherwise. She'd walk into a room and scan it for approval, laugh a little louder, say a little too much, just to prove she belonged. But it never worked. The more she gave, the less she was respected. The more open she became, the more they used her honesty as ammunition. Then one day, she stopped. Not with a meltdown, not with a goodbye post, just a quiet shift. She started waking up before her notifications, sat with her coffee and journaled, not to be poetic, but to untangle the noise. She began reading philosophy. At first, just quotes, then books, then meditations. And suddenly, she wasn't reacting the same. Someone insulted her, she'd blink, breathe, say nothing. Someone ghosted her, she let them, with grace, not out of ego, but because she realized people aren't doors to keep knocking on. She started to notice things others missed, the hesitation in a compliment, the motive behind a gift, the power of staying calm when everyone else wanted a reaction. Her friends didn't know what happened. They said she was different now, distant, unreachable. But she wasn't distant. She was unavailable to the chaos she used to attract. Sarah didn't become smarter overnight. She just stopped leaking her power. And when she did, everything changed. Because now, people lean in when she speaks. They don't interrupt. They don't test her. They can feel it, even if they can't name it. That kind of calm makes people curious. That kind of silence makes noise irrelevant. Sarah didn't become cold. She became dangerously smart. You know what makes someone truly dangerous? Not their resume, not their confidence, not how loud they are in a room, but the way they move when no one's watching, the way they sit with pain and don't broadcast it, the way they master a skill in silence until it speaks for them. That kind of energy can't be faked. It's built in silence, in shadows, in decisions no one claps for. And if you're feeling this, if these words land where you can't quite explain, don't scroll. Subscribe, not for us, but for you. Because this space isn't for noise, it's for you. The version of you that doesn't need saving, just reminding. And when you're done here, you won't just know more. You'll feel more, centered, unbothered, clear. Because that's what real intelligence brings, peace. Not the kind that avoids conflict, but the kind that refuses to participate in nonsense. That's what you're cultivating now. The ability to pause when provoked, to observe without absorbing, to lead without seeking followers. You're no longer trying to out-talk the loud. You're learning how to outlast them. The Stoics didn't win debates. They won control over their minds. And from there, everything else followed. So the next time you're tempted to argue, to prove, to correct, remember, a lion never has to explain itself to sheep. Let them think you're passive. Let them confuse your silence for weakness. Because they don't know, you're not staying silent. You're sharpening your edge. There will be moments they try you, not with fists, but with jabs wrapped in jokes, with compliments dipped in sarcasm, with questions they already know the answer to, just to see if you'll flinch. They'll say, "You've changed. You're too quiet now. You think you're better?" And you'll feel the heat rise in your chest, the urge to fire back, to break the silence with proof, defense, validation. But you won't, because you've been here before, and you finally understand. Power doesn't rush. It doesn't explain. It doesn't swing at every swing. It just watches. This is where the old you would have cracked, would have overshared, would have begged to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you, but not anymore. Now you understand what the Stoics meant when they said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. You don't have to shout that you're evolving, just evolve. And let the discomfort do the talking. They'll try to pull you back into old arguments, old identities, old versions of you they could control. But that version's gone, replaced by something sharper, still, unbothered. You don't need to defend your distance. Your silence is fluent now. It speaks volumes. Because people hear what you don't say louder than anything you could explain. Let them feel that. Let them sit in the gap between the version of you they miss and the one they're not ready to meet. That space, it's where your power lives now. Not in performance, not in reaction, but in choice. The choice to observe instead of engage, to rise instead of react, to move without warning. That's not cold, that's controlled. And in a world built on attention-seeking, restraint is revolution. There's a moment when silence stops being awkward and starts becoming dangerous. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens after enough lessons, enough betrayals, enough realizations that reacting never changed anything but your own peace. Now, they look at you and sense something's different. Not just your words, but your presence. You don't chase. You don't explain. You don't soften your edges for people who only showed up to dull your shine. You've learned how to hold your thoughts the way a warrior holds a blade. Close, sharp, never drawn unless necessary. Because every time you engaged in drama, you lost focus. Every time you tried to teach someone who wasn't listening, you drained yourself. So now, you let the silence speak for you, not as a weapon, but as a filter. The wrong ones walk away. The right ones feel the weight of your presence, even when you say nothing. That's the mark of dangerous intelligence, when your calm becomes a challenge, when your stillness triggers them more than your arguments ever did. They don't know what you're thinking. They can't predict your next move. And that drives them wild. Because people fear what they can't control, and they can't control someone who's mastered themselves. You're not trying to be mysterious. You're just no longer interested in narrating your every thought for people who aren't equipped to hold it. Your quiet is intentional. Your distance is designed. And your restraint? That's where your real power lives. Not because you've gone numb, but because you've chosen clarity over chaos. And in a world of noise, the most dangerous voice is the one that knows when not to speak. You didn't ask for attention, but now you get it. Not because you perform, but because you don't. People notice when you don't play their games anymore, when you don't flinch at insults, don't beg to be liked, don't explain why you're distant, because distance isn't rejection, it's protection. You've earned your silence, and that makes you dangerous, not reckless, not impulsive, but unreadable. The kind of person they can't pin down. The kind of mind that doesn't give away its power through overreaction or oversharing. You no longer need to win arguments. You win by not entering them. They push. You pause. They insult. You smile. They wonder. You disappear. Not out of fear, but because energy is currency, and you've stopped making donations to bankrupt conversations. Your mind now works in layers. You see motive behind words. You see desperation behind pride. You hear the silence between the lines. That's what Stoic intelligence gives you. Vision. Not just for what's said, but for what's hidden, what's masked, what's afraid of your clarity. And they'll try to pull you back, into noise, into chaos, into who you were. But you've become too aware, too sharp, too self-contained to be seduced by dysfunction. That's what they don't understand. You didn't just get smarter, you became still. And stillness is terrifying to people who thrive on chaos, because they can't provoke it, they can't rush it, they can't shake it. You've stepped beyond reaction, beyond noise, beyond the need to prove. You're not unreachable, you're just untouchable. You no longer try to be understood. You've understood yourself, and that's more than enough, because they never listened to understand, only to respond, only to win, only to place you back into the version of you they were comfortable with. But that version doesn't live here anymore. You've stopped offering your thoughts like they're public property, stopped decorating your silence with justifications, stopped needing someone to validate what your gut already knows. Because once you know, you move differently, you sit differently, you breathe differently, you speak only when necessary, not because you're afraid to talk, but because you've tasted the power of not having to. They mistake your stillness for weakness, until they realize stillness is the final form of intelligence. It's not passive, it's focused, it's measured, and it doesn't blink under pressure. Marcus Aurelius didn't raise his voice to command an empire. He commanded himself, and that was enough. You're not building a brand. You're building presence. You're not chasing recognition. You're chasing resonance. And now, they can't read you. They can't predict you. They can't move you, because you don't react to what no longer deserves a reaction. That's dangerous. That's rare. That's stoic. So the next time they try to pull you back to explain yourself to get a rise, don't. Just look and smile, because there's nothing louder than the mind they can't touch. And you've become dangerously smart. If this resonated deeper than words, subscribe. This isn't just content. It's your return to silence, to focus, to the mind they'll never read. And next time they test you, just smile, because you're no longer reacting, you're reigning.